folks, Doc here. Thank you for tuning in to my very first episode of Doc's Favorite Things. Now, I'm going to inaugurate this new section with something that's very dear to me, this Zippo Slim lighter. Zippo lighters have been around since the late 1800s. They really took off with the introduction of the windproof lighter in the 20s or 30s, and then they became popular with the American military effort, and in many ways became symbolic with being a GI. And later in the 60s, they produced what was called the Zippo Slim lighter, this smaller, more compact version. For comparison, I have a regular size Zippo. They're much smaller, much more slim. So the Zippo Slim was originally marketed as a smaller lighter for ladies, because apparently, them gentle lady folk just ain't strong enough to, light a lighter. Too much work there. They need something for their daintified bones. It actually ended up becoming really popular with men. They liked the smaller compactness, and Zippo finally just retooled it as like a smaller, more compact version of their windproof lighter. This one is really special to me because my dad gave it to me when I was 17. He kind of always fancied himself as a bit of a crusty old supply sergeant, and throughout my scouting career, he always talked about Zippo lighters, and finally one day he picked me up from school on our way to a scout meeting, and he had this paper bag, and in it was a full-sized brushed stainless steel lighter and a compact one. And at the time, I was really hardcore into backpacking. I was talking about it all the time, thinking about it, and so he gave me the choice of either the slim lighter or the full-size one. He gave me the choice between the full-size lighter or the slim lighter. And realistically, he knew full well that I was going to go for the slim lighter. I wanted the thing that was lighter and smaller and could backpack better. But he wanted to give me that choice. And in the end, he got the lighter he wanted, I got the lighter I wanted. It was very clever of him, and I still smile about that. This first proved itself that following weekend when we went up to Echo Lake in the Sierra to go for a snowshoeing trip. And I remember it was a bit of a struggle, that trip. When the cloud cover parted, the temperature just dropped. I was the scout in charge, and I had 3 other scouts with me, and I was losing it. It was a struggle to focus, but we already had one scout who would basically shut down. Like, he was so out of it. Like, not shut down death-wise, but like he just bonked hard. He was hypothermic. So we divided and conquered, and I had one of my closest friends and trusted deputies, Harrison, make us a shelter. Meanwhile, I got some hot water going so we could have oatmeal and tea and try and warm. I just remember as the stars were coming out struggling with this, not realizing that the cool air was keeping the fuel from volatilizing, and so it would just spark and not light. And I finally came to that conclusion and stuffed it into the back of my mitten and let it warm up for a few minutes, and then we fired at the stove and we had hot food. By that time, Harrison had completed the shelter, and we got in and started to get warm, started feeling good, and that ended up being one of my favorite outings. I still think about that outing to this day. It was a good time, and I'm looking forward to the next opportunity to go snowshoeing. From there, this went with me on many more backpacking trips. My very first long backpacking trip, my very first trip out in Yosemite, Tuolumne Meadows, throughout the Vogelsang region, and another trip up there, and then every trip out to Point Reyes, every trip up to Snow Mountain. This thing has been with me through thick and thin. It means the world to me because I think about my dad, and I think about, just how cool it is that something he always wanted could mean something to me. Another funny thing about it is I ended up getting a second one for my survival kit. And I always know which is which because the one my dad gave me has this ding in the lid. And I always look for that ding. I remember when we were evacuating from the Tubbs fire, this was one of the very first things I grabbed too, because I could lose a room full of books as I did. I could lose my 1983 Toyota pickup as I did. But I couldn't lose something that my dad picked out for me, special. And ever since then, I've just always made sure it's close at hand. The Zippo Slim lighter is nice, it's light, it has all the typical Zippo windproof features. You can light it up pretty easy, especially if you use quality Roncinol fuel. It uses flints, steer clear of the Zippo fuel and Zippo flints. The Zippo fuel just doesn't light, and the Zippo flints tend to break down in the presence of the Roncinol fuel. Use Roncinol fuel, Roncinol flints. And the truth is, you don't even need to fuel it. If you have just a standard pressurized gas stove, you can actually light the fuel with just the sparks from it. You don't need the flame. You know, it doesn't take up a lot of space, it doesn't weigh much, it's easy to keep track of. It really is a fantastic tool. I highly recommend the Zippo Slim. Cat!